Eugene Walker, forensic pathologist, here at the Ottawa Hospital General Campus within the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine. I will be the chair for today's Palm Grand Round session. We're just about 1 minute away from start time, and we now have our second presenter who has joined. So today it's my extreme pleasure to introduce two speakers for today's session, which is going to be on the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative, responding to a need. These speakers for today's session are making history in that this is the first time that medical students will be presenting at our departmental Palm Grand Rounds. Our presenters today are Mr. Ranjiv-a Bridglal, who is a third-year medical student at the University of the West Indies, and Ms. Anne-Marie Ming, who is a final year medical student, year 5, also at the University of the West Indies. Both, I am proud to say, from my alma mater, St. Augustine Campus of Trinidad and Tobago. So just a bit of background. Mr. Bridglal is the current president of the Pathology Club of the University of the West Indies, who is a third-year medical student, who is expected to complete his undergraduate medical degree in 2024, after which he intends to pursue postgraduate medical training. He's currently a national scholarship recipient of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and is certified in advanced cardiac life support. As I said before, he is the incumbent president of the Pathology Club of the University of the West Indies, where he served as its inaugural trustee. He's very passionate about the development and advancement of the pedagogy of medical education, with a keen interest in addressing poorly diversified areas of medicine in the Caribbean region and other developing areas. His research focuses on the improvement of existing practice as to better meet the demands of local and regional cohort. Ms. Anne-Marie Ming is a final year medical student from the St. Augustine Campus as well of the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago, who is an aspiring forensic pathologist. She is expected to complete her degree later this year, after which she hopes to pursue postgraduate training in pathology in the United States. Ms. Anne-Marie Ming broke barriers 2 years ago when she became the founder of the Pathology Club of the University of the West Indies, the first club of its kind in the history of the university, which I'm proud to say I had a part in playing to establish. She is also the co-founder of the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative, which is supported, or which supports the Pathology Club of the UE through our department here of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at the University of Ottawa and EORLA. And that initiative was established to expose Caribbean medical students to various fields within the scope of pathology and laboratory medicine. Apart from her interest in pathology, Anne-Marie is very passionate about raising awareness of mental health and its stigmas, and is an upcoming mental health advocate as well. She served on the executive board of the Rotary Club of Mount Hope for 2018-2019 and was recognized as a Rotaractor of that year. So without any further ado, I give you both Mr. Ranjiv-a Bridglal and Ms. Anne-Marie Ming, who are going to speak to us today about the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative, responding to a need, and what our support here at EORLA means to them. Over to you, Ranjiv and Anne-Marie.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to be presenting here today. As Dr. Walker mentioned, we'll be presenting on the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative. My name is Ming, and I thank Dr. Walker for the warm welcome. So I will be beginning and giving a little context as to what CPALMSI is about, which we have abbreviated as, and then my colleague Ranjiv-a will be continuing. So to paint a little picture as to where we are located, we are within the Caribbean region, as you can see highlighted here. And Trinidad and Tobago is located is located 6.8 miles, approximately 7 miles off the northeast coast of Venezuela. We are a beautiful twin island, and we have some wonderful dishes, as you can see here, as well as some beautiful beaches, which I do hope you can one day visit. Now, regarding the landscape of pathology within the Caribbean, I'll be focusing on Trinidad and Tobago. And we have 5 major hospitals. As you can see here, one of the major ones is the Port of Spain General Hospital. We have the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, which is where our Faculty of Medical Sciences is located, the San Fernando General Hospital, the Sangre Grande General Hospital, as well as the Scarborough General Hospital, which is located in Tobago. With regards to histology cases, we have an average caseload of 17,000 cases, cytology average 10,600, and autopsy approximately 4,000, including those from the Trinidad and Tobago Forensic Sciences Center. Now, as you can see on these caseload numbers, we would need an adequate number of pathologists. However, currently we only have 12 pathologists, of which 2 of those are forensic pathologists. With regards to the other Caribbean islands, the Bahamas has 3 pathologists, 2 of which are forensic pathologists for a population of 395,100. In Jamaica, there are 14 pathologists, 6 of which are forensic pathologists for a population of 3 million. There is, in Barbados, there are 3 pathologists for a population of 288,000. Trinidad and Tobago, as said previously, are 12 pathologists, 2 of which are forensic pathologists for a population of 1.4 million. We have Antigua with 2 pathologists for a population of 99,000. St. Lucia has 5 pathologists for a population of 185,000, and we have St. Vincent and Grenadines with 1 pathologist for a population of 111,000. As you can see here, it's not only Trinidad and Tobago, but many Caribbean countries that do not have adequate pathologists to satisfy the average caseload. Recent 2019 cross-sectional study over a 10-year period also found that the Canadian pathologist workforce increased by 20.45%, whereas the US pathologist workforce decreased by 17.53%. There are a number of factors that contribute towards students not choosing to pursue a career in pathology, most common of which are misconceptions about the field, where most students, when they hear the word pathology, they think that it's someone who just does autopsies all day or looks at a microscope all day. There's also a lack of awareness and inadequate exposure. These all lead to a lack of interest in the field. And for example, here at the Faculty of Medical Sciences of the University of the West Indies, we are limited to exposure to pathology, only very introductory courses in our first year, as well as with regards to forensic pathology, it averages to approximately 12 hours of exposure in our third year of studies. Now, in addition to this, the specialization opportunities locally for pathology are limited, locally and regionally, are limited, and these factors all contribute towards students choosing careers in the more traditional fields. In a recent study among St. Augustine medical students conducted by my colleague Ranjiv-a, they found that the most common choices of specialty, first choice, were cardiothoracic surgery, pediatrics, general surgery, neurosurgery, and obstetrics and gynecology, with only 9 out of, my apologies, I'm having some technical difficulties, right. About that, with only 9 out of 252 students, or 3.6%, stating that they would consider choosing pathology as their first choice. As you can see here regarding a second choice, only 2 out of 249 students, or 0.8%, stated that they would consider a career in pathology as their second choice. And third choice, 6 out of 244 students, or 2.5%, stating that they would consider pathology as their third choice. What this data really shows is that 96.4% of students would not consider career in pathology as their first choice. In addition to this, less than 10% of graduating medical students throughout the world choose to pursue a career in pathology. And of this, only 5% state that they would select pathology as their first choice. So what exactly is the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative, or CPALMSI? So what CPALMSI aims to do is to provide medical students with exposure to pathology, its various subspecialties, scope of practice, and possible careers in the field. And what we hope to do through CPALMSI is to increase the number of students choosing to pursue a career in pathology, including the various subspecialties. Now, regarding the Pathology Club of UWI, as Dr. Walker previously mentioned, it is the first club of its kind in the history of the University of the West Indies, and it was launched on the 6th of August 2020. This is our inaugural executive board here. As you can see, Dr. Walker is our advisory board member, Dr. Catherine Morris, as well as Professor ABC Rao as academic advisor. And this is our current executive board here, where Dr. Walker now serves as executive director, as well as Dr. Catherine Morris, and Dr. Melanie John-Siller, who is a consultant pathologist, has joined us as advisory board member. Now, University of the West Indies, or UWI, is a regional university that was established in 1948 in Jamaica, which initially started with 33 medical students, and it has now expanded throughout the Caribbean region to include campuses in Barbados, Top Center, as well as here in Mount Hope, Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex, top left, as well as in Cave Hill, and Antigua and Barbuda. There are now approximately 50,000 students across the various campuses, and our average class size approximately 250 students. As you can see, this is our inaugural CPALMSI session that was featured on the 13th of August 2021, where we featured Dr. Catherine Morris, who gave an introductory session on pathology and laboratory medicine. And these are some of the various sessions that we had, including cardiovascular pathology and so forth, as you can see here. What we sought to do was to give very realistic expectations of what pathology and its various subspecialties entailed. And so we sought volunteers who are various experts in the various fields who are both international, regional, and local, who volunteered their time to deliver 60-minute didactic lectures. And these lectures were interactive, where they featured not only the pathway to these featured subspecialties, but also they also highlighted cases, as well as gave a preview into the day of the life of what they would normally do as the gastrointestinal pathologist, for example, for the session we had November 2020. These are our sessions that we'll be having for the academic year of 2021-2022. And we have a session this Thursday on pulmonary pathology, featuring Dr. Pilapa, who will do a 60-minute session, and it will be at 6 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time or 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, regarding our sessions so far, we found that the most popular subspecialty among students was forensic pathology, which both had the highest attendance as well as gained the most interest among students. It was our 10th CPALMSI session that was held on the 9th of September 2021 and featured Dr. Walker, who did both a career in forensic pathology as well as a preview into the post-mortem examination. So far, the number of all of our sessions, are uploaded to our YouTube channel, which is the Pathology Club of UWI. Once we receive speakers' permission. Thank you very much, and I'll now hand you over to my colleague Ranjiv-a, who will delve a little bit more into CPALMSI.
You need to unmute Ranjiv-a.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much, Anne-Marie, for setting the stage. And I want to begin by thanking Dr. Walker, first of all, for giving us this opportunity and for really mentoring this group of medical students from his alma mater. And I also want to thank the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at the University of Ottawa, as well as EORLA, for all of their investments that they have made in us, whether it is giving us speakers or lending us support. So my duty here this afternoon is to show you what an initiative like CPALMSI could do at an institution that has deficiencies in a certain area. And I'm going to use, obviously, what we did here in St. Augustine and throughout the University of the West Indies across the 3 campuses to kind of set the stage as to how this initiative has impacted pathology and gave light to laboratory medicine. So Anne-Marie would have, as I mentioned, set the stage and done so brilliantly, where she looked at the status of affairs of pathology within Trinidad and the Caribbean, as well as opportunities for pathology education within Trinidad and the Caribbean, as well as let you in on what CPALMSI is for those of you who are not aware of what it is. What I'm going to do is delve into the benefits of it. So if you are a student or a program director that wants to have an extracurricular activity that doesn't really require much investment in terms of time, in terms of resources, and I'm going to show you what this program has been able to do here at St. Augustine and the University of the West Indies by extension. I'm also going to show you an algorithm. We may not have necessarily followed this algorithm, but we have fit in well with it. And it's not only applicable to pathology and not only applicable to a specialty in medicine, but to any area that, again, has deficiencies. And we'll end up by taking some questions from the audience. So to kind of give context in terms of where I'll be heading and the objectives that we provided to you, I'll be looking at the second half of the second objective, which looks at the potential methods of expanding its reach to international medical students. So we'll be looking at the algorithm there. And the third objective I'll look at first, which is to look at the benefits of establishing a similar initiative in an international medical school. So in terms of benefits, the first thing that we always talk about, is we always bring awareness. That is like the cliche thing to say. That is the thing that everyone puts on a report. But really, what this point looks at in a context of an area that has a deficiency, especially where education is involved, is finding that inner student and finding those inner values within a student to come out and say that, well, I like a certain field in pathology. What does all of this mean? Well, sometimes, especially in the curriculum here, in our curriculum, we only spend 6 months in pathology or in pathology-based areas. And as a student who's currently in that 6 months, I can tell you that we don't get enough time to appreciate the content. And so we just learn work for an exam and learn work for our year 4 and 5, and we don't really get to, as I mentioned, appreciate it. And so what a program like CPALMSI does is that it gives a student an opportunity to say that I like this or I don't like this by having speakers, by having experienced persons come forward and give their side of things into the specialty, give their take on the specialty, as well as deliver cases. And a lot of the speakers that we have had have said that, we don't just come to give a talk, we come to have cases to show the students, especially given the fact that we are not exposed to certain specialties, the majority of the specialties that pathology entails. And what this also does is that it builds an appreciation for future clinicians, whether they choose a specialty in pathology or not, to appreciate pathology and laboratory medicine. A lot of the time, as Anne-Marie said, especially here in Trinidad, where we only have access to 12 pathologists, a lot of people think that it's just persons who work behind the scenes, persons who are behind a microscope, or persons doing autopsies. What these sessions also do is that it builds within these future clinicians that appreciation for seeing that a pathologist is the doctor's doctor. They give doctors guidance, they give their opinion guides what happens in the clinics, guides what happens in the operation theaters. And finally, as I mentioned, a lot of our speakers come and they give case-based approach. They use a case-based approach. And a lot of the times, as I mentioned, we don't have exposure to these things. So so what they do really is complement what we learn in the MBBS, but it also expands our knowledge, expands our ability to think certain things that would be beneficial to us when we go to clinics, when we go to board exams, or indeed when we start a residency. So is there a question? Okay, I think that was an error. So what really is the measure of success in terms of having a program like CPALMSI? Well, we can quantify it. And two ways that we do that is by looking at the direct impact and the indirect impact. The direct impact in our case will be looking at what our attendance numbers look like. And you may be seeing this, it's not a constant chart. You may be seeing numbers as high as 101 and numbers as low as 17. Well, as Anne-Marie would have told us when we would have started this program, if we have got one student or even 3 students, let's say being minimum, we would have been successful, especially given where we are going, pathology being, as she mentioned, and as from research that I would have done, continues to be a low yield specialty here in Trinidad and within the Caribbean. And also given the fact that these programs are held during the semester when students have, so much work to do. It shows a lot when we have 101 students coming out to a session in the evening to hear Dr. Collins speak, for example, on forensic pathology. And that's the other thing we can look at when we look at these graphs, is looking at the sessions, the specialty that we look at, subspecialty, as well as the attendance. So we see, as Anne-Marie mentioned, the highest numbers being in forensic pathology, but we can also appreciate where the lower numbers take us. The 9th session, for example, with 17 persons, that was with molecular pathology. And our most recent session had 19 persons, and that would have looked at microbiology. So it really shows you at a far-fetched where potentially pathology lies within the Caribbean region. And then indirectly, how we measure this as well is that we have a YouTube page where all of our sessions, with the exception of 2, that being the 2 forensic pathology-based sessions, we would have uploaded to our YouTube channel. And really, this has seen more success in the sense that we have had over 2,000 views on this page. And yes, some persons may have, millions of views on a YouTube page, but 2,000 views coming from a pathology-based Caribbean institution that started with 100 and I think 50-something members. This is really far when we are very proud of where we are at. So this really shows us, or shows you rather, the potential for such an initiative at an institution that you're at, and it can have great impact throughout. So now I'm going to switch gears a bit and look at the second half of the second objective, which I'm going to develop an algorithm with you and walk you through the thought process that we would have used, especially Anne-Marie and Dr. Walker, in establishing the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Students Initiative, and by example, the Pathology Club of UE. So 4 stages that we broke this up into. It would be the initiating stage, the planning stage, the executing stage, and the closing stage. Initiating stage, again, the planning stage, the executing stage, and the closing stage. Now, the initiating stage, as it self-explains, is where you get the ball rolling. First things first, you have to identify, is there a problem? Is there a need? And that is what we did. We, especially Anne-Marie and the inaugural executive board, would have sat down and would have said, there is a deficiency within the curriculum of the MBBS program with pathology and laboratory medicine. Mainly pathology, laboratory medicine doesn't even exist in terms of that term here within the Caribbean. And, you know, that limited exposure then begs the question, is there a deficiency that also exists in practice? And when we looked at the Medical Board of Trinidad and Tobago, their registry, their specialist registry, what we found was that there were only 27 specialists. Now, when we compare this with something like internal medicine that has, you know, hundreds of personnel, it really, you know, shows that there is a problem. So that answers the question, is there a problem? Yes. What is the more saddening part of this is that within these 27 specialists, you know, we have listed Dr. Walker, for example, is listed on that because he was, he registered with the medical board. So what we found further to that is that the majority of this 27 pathologists and laboratory medicine personnel, they were practicing in foreign land. So when we did checkings, what we found, and Anne-Marie would have showed it in her presentation, is that there are only 12, approximately 12 pathologists that is currently practicing, and 2 of which are forensic pathologists. So then, you know, going along with this, if you are going to execute this at a university or an institution that you're at, you know, you want to have a problem, and you must not only view that problem from your perspective, but you must view that problem from other person's perspective. And that is why, you know, we consulted faculty and we consulted other students, and we gathered an executive together. And the reason for this is that we didn't want to be addressing a problem that was a problem in one person's eyes. We wanted it to be a problem that everyone saw. What does this mean? The University of the West Indies this year graduated 0 pathologists in terms of specialists at St. Augustine Campus, because we now started our anatomical pathology residency. When we compare that to something like general surgery, we graduated 7 general surgeons. Is general surgery really a problem in terms of students not being interested in it? The answer to that is no. So you wouldn't go in a saturated field and find a problem. There may be problems that exist, but you don't want to focus on it when you can focus on something that has a greater demand, such as pathology. So that was the thought process behind choosing pathology and the direction for the Caribbean Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative. As I mentioned, we consulted with faculty. Now, what is the limitation to that? At the University of the West Indies here in St. Augustine, the Department of Paraclinical Medicine only has 10 pathology and laboratory medicine oriented specialists, with 3 being anatomical pathologists, 2 being chemical pathologists, 3 microbiologists, and 2 hematopathologists. And we also looked at the consultant pathologist. I remember Anne-Marie would have told me that at the time Dr. Morris was working in Port of Spain, and she would have contacted her. And that is how this networking started, where Dr. Walker was called in and, you know, really got the ball rolling. So that's why I said the initiating stage is where we get the ball rolling. And he came along together with Dr. Morris with this whole set of ideas that really, you know, kickstarted this entire process. And then finally, you want to get a group of students together, because you don't want to be a lone ranger on this journey, because it's a lot of work. You know, as I would mention to you later on, when you divide the work, it's not much, it's not upgrade demand, but you have to get help in terms of establishing something like this, because it's a lot of mechanics that are working into one of these sessions. So you also want to get a team that has, you know, varying competencies. You want it to complement each other. You don't want to get 5 persons together, and the 5 persons, you know, the only thing that they know to do is one skill, and the rest of the skills are deficient. Now, that doesn't mean that you go and you find a bunch of people with different skills, but they miss that one link that is needed for a program like this, and that is passion. You have to, each of the students and each of the mentors that you have must be passion driven. And that is one thing that Dr. Walker and Anne-Marie and all of the persons, Dr. Morris, Dr. John Siller, can be credited with. They are all passion driven individuals. And without that input, I don't think this initiative would have lasted so long, because we are now on to our second year, the second half of the second year. So I looked at the initiating stage where we get the ball rolling. The next thing that we look at is the planning stage, getting a session ready to be delivered to an audience. But before you do that, you must always establish limits. And how you do that is define objectives. You want to have yourself some clear objectives. You want to give yourself direction, which is most important. You don't want to go out there. You don't want to just be having sessions for having sessions' sake, repeating sessions, having the same set of talks being done over and over. One of our objectives, according to our constitution, is that we must develop and expand pathology and laboratory medicine and the knowledge that students have. We know that students like forensic pathology within the Caribbean, but we're not going to have 10 out of 10 sessions in forensic pathology. We want to have a diverse set of talks so that, as I mentioned, that student who is sitting there who has never heard before of, let's say, perinatal pathology can say, oh, that is something that I like and that I want to do. And that without these sessions, they would not have been able to find within themselves. And you want to also develop a strategy, and a good strategy is an if-then-else protocol. And I will come back to this later on, where you must always identify possible areas of failure. And you must accept that failure is inevitable at some point and that mistakes would happen. But you must always have a backup plan. You never want to just, invite a speaker, create a link and just, everybody join on. No. You must always do things with passion. And again, it comes back to that element of having passion, which, as I mentioned, is the ultimate driving tool in something like this. And finally, you want to develop a schedule. Whether it be you schedule talks like we do every Thursday evening, and the reason for that mainly being, speakers availability. The University of the West Indies, at least in the St. Augustine campus, gives Thursday afternoons off. That's club hours. And, you also want to develop a schedule that is respectful of other persons who is with helping you. You want to respect your executive, the students who are helping you. You don't want to have them, every day having a commitment. No, people will get fed up easy, and that's where passion really turns into anger. And the same goes along with your mentors. You don't want to be bothering them every day. You don't want to be harassing them or anything like that. So when you develop a schedule, you develop a strategy, and you define your objectives, what this does is that it gives you direction, and not only a direction, but clear and concise, a clear and concise route as to where you want to go and where you foresee it happening. And where this shows is in the last stage, and I would explain this. When you reach that final stage of the closing stage, it always relates back to the planning stage where you say, did my vision come through? And so far with using a simple algorithm as I'm explaining to you, so far the answer for the Pathology Club has been yes. We have been seeing a lot of success. So after you have planned, after you have got the ball rolling, you have established ground, the next thing you want to start doing is executing. You want to be choosing topics, and these topics, as I mentioned, yes, have local context. There's a demand in Trinidad and Tobago for forensic pathologists, but it's not the only area that needs persons. So we can have a talk every year on forensic pathology, or maybe two, but you also need to look at where does the demand lay, where is there a need more than a demand, but more than that, where your student interest takes you. It's like a ghost tree. You don't want to have an item there that persons are not interested in buying, because then you're just going to end up in a bus. So as we say in Trinidad, in a bus. So you want to also have direction from your student body, from your members. And that is what we always do at the end of our sessions. And as I will mention in the closing stage, you always want to get that feedback from the student body. as to whether or not they like the session and what they want to see being done next. Then the other thing is choosing a speaker. Now, this may be a simple thing as, call Dr. Walker, he'll find someone. That's all well and fine, but we want to have a speaker that, again, is passionate and is dedicated about their specialty. Whether or not there exist persons who are in fields that they don't like and they don't have passion or dedication, sometimes it shows. Sometimes you have conversations with professionals and they're just not comfortable with what they're doing. We try to stay away from having those persons because they tend to come and transverse that negative energy onto persons. Now, we have not encountered that thus far because, as I mentioned, Dr. Walker is a passion-driven individual, so is Dr. Morris and Dr. Johnson, and they usually gives us and drives us towards passion-driven persons, and we have been blessed so far to have only persons who are interested in what they do and really like what they do so much so to take an hour and a half out of their evening to come and speak to us. You also want them to be impactful. As a professional, as someone who is showing someone what a specialty entails, and as a speaker. And finally, you want someone who is have experience, yes, but in an academic setting, is at the cutting edge of research and development in their field. Finally, within the execution stage, there is marketing. The Pathology Club of You, we usually use, the Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. And really it's free, number one, it has great reach, it is in touch with the younger student body. There are other platforms as well, but we don't only just market a CPALMSI session by just putting up a flyer with a date, a time, and a link, and who is the speaker. You want to build up to a session, you want to give it momentum so that when that session comes, it's like Christmas morning. There's the whole season, and then there is Christmas morning. So what we do is that we have spotters. We put up a question, we put up a slide, identify the pathology, identify what's wrong here. We do cases, in-depth cases. So we, for example, we are having a session with, Anne-Marie mentioned, in Thursday coming with pulmonary pathology. We would do a case that is based on a COPD, for example. And then, students would interact on our WhatsApp group. Students would interact on the Instagram and Facebook pages. And then you also want to do things. Now, a spotter on a case would require a lot from a student in terms of, they have to concentrate, they have to think. You can also do things that, if someone is just dropping in on Instagram or dropping in on their WhatsApp group and they see something like a Mythbuster, they read it, all they have to do is pick true or false. And you also want to get creative. We changed a lot of the things, especially under my tenure. We introduced Mythbusters, we got rid of certain things. And what you'd realize in these initiatives is that, yes, you may find comfort and what may be perfection at the time, but the perfection never has limits, and you can always, with a new executive comes new ideas, comes greater creativity. There's always space to refine your product and to refine what you do and how you do it, most importantly. And finally, there's this closing stage where the session is over, and it's important for you to understand a session being over and done doesn't mean it's successful. There are measures of success, there are measures of failures. And one of the most important points that we have learned in the Pathology Club is identifying failures at the most immediate moment and fixing it or finding a possible workaround. So you always have evaluation. As I mentioned, you always ask persons for their feedback. One of the failures that we have had is poor attendance. Is it necessarily a failure in our eyes as persons who are passionate about pathology? Absolutely not. As I mentioned, one person being there is a success for us. But it's something that we'd like to see improve. We put so much of effort. We have speakers from all over the world. An investment from the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at uOttawa and EORLA. We need to have, a kind of proper base to say, you know, the speaker could have feedback on the session, proper feedback, reliable feedback. So it's something that we like to work on, and we are working on, and possible solutions, as you can see on the column to the side, is better marketing, and but also with a lot of these failures in realizing comes that element of accepting that there will always be a consistency, especially if consistency exists. And in our case, we have, for certain sessions, especially the non-forensic based sessions, we have consistently seen a lack of attendance. And so we accept that there's a lack of interest, and you know, it's something that we will never give up on, but it's something that we can never control. And so accepting your stance and accepting failures is a big part of this. Another failure sometimes that you can't control and has made now its presence more than ever during the pandemic is the failure of logistics and software. We have had many instances where speakers, you know, they get cut off, or last speaker got cut off, and you know, it's just, you know, as I mentioned during the planning stage, having backup plans is always effective. Now, a speaker cutting off doesn't mean that your backup plan is to have another speaker standing by, and that wouldn't work. So again, being realistic and accepting certain things is sometimes the easiest solution to your failures. And finally, you want to present your findings. What we usually do for record purposes, for future executive benefits, for, you know, for future clubs that wish to establish themselves, or initiatives, is that we usually do a report at the end of each session, and you know, we look at all of the areas. It's usually a comprehensive document, about 24 pages, 25 pages, where we, you know, every single part of the event is analyzed and is reported on, and there we acknowledge our failures, we dwell on our success for guidance on our failures. And you also want to, you know, if you have put so much of effort and initiative into a program that you have developed, why not submit abstracts? Why not go and present it at conferences? And, you know, we saw, you know, Anne-Marie did this at the NMA name cap, and today we also presented at the Royal College of Medicine and the Pathology Society. So it's always a good opportunity for students to build themselves, and not only planning, but also give them exposure in other fields. So, you know, this brings close to the algorithm, which again, you initiate, you plan, you execute, and you close. The most important being close, because it guides the cycle to start again, where you don't repeat certain mistakes. So, you know, for those of you who would have attended our sessions, you would have realized that, you know, it's usually a well-oiled, smooth process. And the reason for that is that we have developed this year a manual that would guide the chair of the session. So the chair of the session is usually a member of the executive, and they are the ones who do the entire process. They would, not the entire process in terms of initiating, but they would plan the session, they would execute the session, and they would close the session. Usually more than one member would be involved. And what this document is a 29-page manual that gives the planner a step-by-step approach that we would have used over the past year and a half. And it is designed for someone who has no knowledge of the session to come in and independently plan and execute a CPALMSI session without any help. So this is 2 excerpts from that document. And what you can realize from it is that a lot of effort went into this, but more than that, it's there for sustainability. It's not just for us and for us to go and tell our residency interview board that, you know, we did this and we were able to plan this, and look, another executive came in and they can't do it. No, it's there because we care about the future of this club, but more than that, the future of the specialty, for what it means here within the Caribbean. So it gives us literally from when you open a certain page to start creating something. Let's say you want to create the graphic, it tells you exactly where to go on Google, or which site to go on, which account to click on, which folder you're going into, you know, so it really gives you that element of, you know, personalization and, you know, that recipe for success. So as I wrap up, I just want to, you know, give some tips for anyone out there who is willing to give this a try at their institution. First of all, I mentioned it during the entire thing. Don't be afraid to have an idea, to start something. Don't be afraid to initiate. Don't be afraid to plan. Don't be afraid to execute, and don't be afraid to close. More than that, don't be afraid to fail. And in the same essence and the same note, don't be afraid to succeed, most importantly. Because out of every failure, no matter if you have, you know, one person, it's a success in someone's eyes who cares about something, and it's a failure in someone else's eyes who don't care about the cause. So don't be afraid. That's the first thing I want to tell you all. And Anne-Marie, being the founder of all of this, can really serve as a testament to that. The second thing is you want to start off simple and build a proper, stable foundation for you to get going. Don't go into it quickly. Don't go into it with a bunch of ideas in your head. As I mentioned, during that initiating and planning stage, you really want to take your time. You want to get the expert's opinion from your faculty, and you want to build that solid foundation. And this leads on to the third point. Ask your faculty for help. They have been there. They have done that. They have been where we are at. They have already done where we are at. They may not have had an initiative like this. I remember Dr. Walker telling us he didn't have anything that like what we had here in the Caribbean at this time in terms of CPALMSI for direction. So, you know, with all of the experience, they may have planned conferences, they may have planned successful conferences, so they know what to do and when to do it. The other thing you must always appreciate is that stick to what works, but you don't ever want to just stick to that. As I mentioned, with new persons that come on board, new ideas come on board, creativity gets rolling. So you never want to stagnate, but also you don't want to overcomplicate. And finally, go out there, show the world what you have, show the faculty what you have, show your institution what you are worth of, and grasp every moment that, every fruit and every moment that comes out of it. And finally, I want to leave you with this quote by Steve Jobs, which says, "The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Less sure about everything, it freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life." Don't ever just say that I am a member of an institution because I enrolled to be here. Go out there and make a difference where you're at, and you will be surprised at where it can take you. And so I want to end this presentation by again thanking the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at the University of Ottawa, thanking all of the staff at the Eastern Ontario Regional Laboratory Association. In particular, I want to thank Dr. Walker for all of the year plus of investment he has made in us, as well as Dr. Morris and Dr. John Silla and our own Professor Rao from our faculty. If you have any questions, please feel free to forward them at the Gmail account that you see listed on the screen. That is pathologyclubue@gmail.com. Follow us on our Facebook and Instagram pages and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back on to Dr. Walker. Or if there are any questions, we would feel free to entertain them now.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ranjiv-a and Anne-Marie. I don't know where to start with the words for, you know, to describe the amount of work you guys and the executive of the Pathology Club have done over the last 2 years. You know, a mustard seed has now sprouted into, you know, a very sturdy tree, which has, you know, extended branches throughout the Caribbean and internationally. So this Pathology and Laboratory Medicine Student Initiative has been shown to, be very successful in garnering interest amongst medical students and opening their eyes to all the different facets that comprise laboratory medicine. You all have done a marvelous job. I honestly don't know where you find the time to be a medical student otherwise. I certainly would not have been capable of achieving this level of success when I was at your stage. So I want to commend you for that, as well as I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to play a part in getting this initiative off the ground. Online is Dr. John Vino, who was chair of our department when you all first came to me 2 years ago. And in my capacity as vice chair of the department and director of education, I approached Dr. Vino to get his sign-off for us to officially partner with the club and support it through this CPALMSI initiative. And thanks to Dr. Vino, it has started, and this is now going to continue with Dr. Vidianer, who has just taken over the reins, as well as we have the support from our Chief Executive Officer of EORLA, Mr. Jeffrey Dale. So we are quite happy to partner with you all, and this has actually opened up the opportunity for our medical students here at the Faculty of Medicine of the University of Ottawa to also become members of this club. And as you know, are aware, we have reached out to them in that regard. So now we have just about 10 minutes for questions from the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand and I would acknowledge you, and the floor would be open to ask Anne-Marie and Ranjiv-a the difficult questions. On the Dr. John Gorniak from Nevada, you have the floor. You are muted, Dr. Gorniak. Dr. Gorniak, are you there?
I am there now. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I pushed too many buttons. So good morning from Las Vegas. I'm a forensic pathologist here. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say you guys did a marvelous job. You are great presenters. You presented it clear and concise. And I just want to say I'm proud of you, and just go pathologists. And then, good luck in the rest of your school career and your future career. But fantastic job from the both of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gorniak.
I see it, Justice Catherine Waterman Lachu's hand is raised. Justice Waterman Lachu is a High Court judge in the Criminal Division of the Judiciary of Trinidad and Tobago. Justice Waterman Lachu.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Well, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but I've followed the development of the club. I've attended a lot of their meetings, and I continue to be amazed. I don't think I had all this gumption when I was when I was their age, and I want to use this model myself in some aspect of the legal field. I like the theme of don't be afraid to have an idea. Don't be afraid to develop your idea. Because even at this stage, I'm still a little shy sometimes about voicing my ideas. But I'd just like to ask Anne-Marie and Rajiv if they could just walk me through a little bit the nuts and bolts of what happened between the idea and actually making it happen. That initial stage when you're having the idea and maybe, I don't know if there's a little bit of self-doubt involved there. What got you through that gateway?
I will start off. Thank you so much, Justice Latro. It is always a pleasure to have you support us. It means so much to us. So initially, I had an idea of, first to begin, of course, as Ranjiv mentioned, a passion for pathology that reignited when I met Dr. Morris in my anatomical pathology clerkship, who then introduced me to Dr. Walker. And from there, everything went so quickly where we identified a need, and I'm a very reserved person. I can be very shy at times, and public speaking is quite difficult for me. So what I can say is that there was a lot of self-doubt, but it could not have been possible without the support and encouragement from Dr. Walker and Dr. Morris. They have played more of a part than I could ever put into words, and they've always encouraged me and even been there for me in ways that you know, it's not necessary for them to be. And I could tell that they were truly passionate, not only that, but they truly cared, not about pathology, but also me as a person and what we hope to establish. So I came to them with an idea, and they were very receptive towards it, Dr. Walker and Dr. Morris. And we came up with the idea for CPALMSI, and then we kind of fleshed out this idea and thought about, okay, how are we going to do this? And most importantly, we wanted it to be something that was cost effective. So CPALMSI does not cost any money at all. We use a free online platform. We use speakers who have volunteered their time. And we also, as Ranjiv-a alluded to, we also spoke to our target audience and persons who have with the experience. And from there, with the various ideas, we sought to develop how are we going to do this. And quite frankly and honestly, the first few sessions were more about finding ourselves and seeing what worked and seeing how receptive our students and our audience was. And from there, we continually refine the sessions. And as Ranjiv alluded to, at the end of each session, we take feedback. So we are always open to the constructive criticism and how we can improve on what is working and what is potentially not working. And what is important to note too is that it doesn't have to be something too grand of an idea or something too major endeavor. It could be something very simple you want to highlight or that you want to engage an audience with. So it can be something very small that can be the most impactful to someone in that regard. So from there, I'll let Ranjiv-a continue, and you can always email us if you have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justice Latro. As Anne-Marie said, it means a lot that you even at this session and you continue to support us. I just wanted to add one point to what Anne-Marie said in terms of the little nitty-gritty parts that you asked about. I wouldn't have been part of the, the conceptualization of the pathology club. I was only recruited when they asked for an executive. But I remembered Anne-Marie, obviously they would have said, we are passionate about pathology and we realize that it's a problem within the Caribbean, again, identifying a problem. And, as part of that, within that small group of them who came up with the idea, they didn't just say, we see a problem here. They also came to the entire student population. I remember when I was sitting in Mount Hope, they came around asking students who were interested in a pathology club, is it a good idea, and to list your name down. So simple things like that, even before you begin, even before you start pooling ideas together, it's always good to go to your intended audience and see if they are interested, as I would have alluded to during the presentation.
Thank you. Great stuff.
And if I can just add that following our inaugural session on August 6, 2020, the National Association of Medical Examiners, which is the US Organization of Forensic Pathologists, which has quite an international membership, has now embarked upon having mentorship sessions for medical students in an effort to attract medical students to consider pursuing residencies in forensic anatomical pathology and fellowships in forensic pathology. And this, I don't think it's coincidence. Anne-Marie has presented at the name meeting, and of course, it was very well received, and I think it has set the stage now for others to follow in the trays that the Pathology Club, in collaboration here with us, has blazed. So again, you know, I'm just happy that I have had the opportunity to be part of this. None of this would be possible as well, apart from the official support from the department and EORLA. None of it would have been possible without the support of the foot soldiers. So we have had, there have been more than one calls for volunteers to speak from EORLA and University of Ottawa. And so far we've had Dr. John Wolfe, forensic neuropathologist, who has spoken. We have had Mr. Edwin Kengala, who is charge tech in histology, who has spoken. We've had Dr. Dinel Demalawi, pediatric pathologist from the Children's Hospital at Chio. Most recently, we've had Dr. Nadia Sant, microbiology. And of course, I am taking this opportunity to make a plug for any other person within the department, within EORLA, who would like to volunteer to speak at the session. Soon we are going to be planning the schedule for 22-23. So just, you know, email myself and, you know, with your idea to speak, and we can certainly accommodate. This has to be a collaborative effort, and as I said, it's also going to be extended to medical students here at the University of Ottawa as one of the means for you know, improving the exposure to pathology. Are there any other questions? We just on time. Any other questions? Anybody from within the department? Dr. Sekon, Dr. Vino? Any comments?
No, I think this is a wonderful thing, Mr. I really admire the, you know, your effort, and then just also participation in all these things, Mr. That's what I was just saying, Mr. You know, work well done, Mr. I would be happy to participate if you need anywhere for my input or my participation to just give any lectures, Mr. I will be happy to do so.
Thank you very much. That will surely be noted. So, Anne-Marie and Ranjiv-a, if it is said to you that the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine only puts on conferences in foreign countries and doesn't do anything else, how would you react to that? What comment would you make?
I would say that our presentation, I hope, would inspire some persons to blaze the trail and, you know, identify a need and develop similar sessions to help have a greater impact. And let's see what Ranjiv-a will say as well.
Yeah, so it tags off from my second to last slide, which says, don't be afraid. So don't be afraid to start. You know, we've seen what something like this could do, and, you know, go forward. And then you can be on the international stage just as we are. So again, I want to end by thanking Dr. Walker for this opportunity, and the University of Ottawa and EORLA.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you to all our participants. We're slightly past 1 o'clock. It was a pleasure chairing this session, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time for the next Pan Grand Round session. Good afternoon to everyone. Don't forget to fill out the SurveyMonkey evaluations for registering your attendance. See you next time.